What is up, YouTube? This is Magician34, and you are watching Forgotten Fridays. Today's card is a much forgotten card, and that's a gosh darn shame, because it's Heliolisk. And other than being, really cool and fun looking and whatnot, he also has this really awesome parabolic charge attack, which for one colorless energy allows you to search your deck for up to 2 energy cards, show them to your opponent, of course, and put them into your hand. Now, what's cool about that is that says 2 energy cards. Not basic energy cards, just energy cards. And while the rest of him is kind of interesting, I mean, his quick attack, if you flip heads, could knock out an Heliolisk EX in one shot from full health, and that's pretty cool. But apart from that, generally speaking, what we're going to be using him for in this deck is, of course, his parabolic charge, because we can get 2 special energies. We can also get basic energies, and we're going to play off of that too, but primarily, we are running what I'm calling a rainbow circus, because it's my video and I can call it what I want to. And we're basically running a whole mess of different colors, and we're going to combine a lot of Pokemon we ordinarily couldn't. So, of course, that said, we are running 3 Helioptiles. I feel like this is the best Helioptile right now, so we're running 3 of that to get our Heliolisks. And every other Pokemon in the deck is a one-of. I felt like running Darkrai because obviously we're going to be running Rainbow Energies, and so we can take advantage of that with Dark Cloak and get a lot of free retreats going. And of course his Night Spear attack doesn't stink, and he's got 180 HP, so, that's all nice too. And of course, as soon as I thought of that guy, I pretty much thought of Keldeo EX right behind him, because after all, that free retreat means that any Rainbow Energy or Dark Energy attached to Keldeo gives him free retreat. So we can run Float Stones, but we can also take advantage of that so that we can rush in to cure status ailments and retreat out Pokemon to erase temporary effects on them and stuff like that, and then free retreat out with Keldeo EX. So that's a nice little thing. And here's a card you might not have thought of when you saw this deck and what was going to be in it. And that's Genesect EX. We're running 1 copy of him, primarily because we can use Heliolisk to go get Plasma Energies to activate this red signal. So it's a really kind of unique little trick we can pull off to kind of get extra Lysanders that aren't our supporter play, obviously. And we can also fire off your Megalo Cannon, which is very good for things like Seismitoad EX, which I, hear gets played a little bit. Okay, with terrifying frequency these days. But anyway, next up, we're running Thundurus EX. I couldn't resist running this guy when we had Genesect EX around, because let's face it, our opponents are quite possibly going to be getting rid of some of our special energies. This guy's our ticket to bringing them back. So basically, you can use this to bring back Rainbow Energies and power up your Genesect EX to actually attack with. So he's nice, plus he's a good early game attacker. I mean, he just deals good damage, and he hits a number of things that are weak to him, like, of course, Heliolisk EX, who's still pretty common. So it's nice to have him around. Speaking of which, Heliolisk EX is around because he's a very good card, and we can go search double colorless energies with our Heliolisk. So this guy fits right in. And for 1 dark energy, which could be a dark energy or a rainbow, we can easily get our Evil Ball ready, but we can also take advantage of Y Cyclone here. Y Cyclone pretty much 2 KOs anything, and it makes sure that energies we attach to him can get where they need to go. So you can transfer them off of him if he's about to be knocked out or something, or if he doesn't need to Evil Ball. And that way we can kind of keep everybody happy. This deck is going to be about definitely planning ahead a few turns. Now, one of our biggest beaters is going to be Xerneas EX. Because his double colorless energy, of course, is a very nice fit. We can get around his X-Blast secondary effect with Darkrai and Keldeo, of course. And Breakthrough is going to help us set up lots of KOs for the late game. So this guy is a very natural fit, actually, even though you might not necessarily think of him in such a way. Besides, how cool is it we can actually run these 2 guys back to back? I mean, I feel like that's cool. I'm an XY nerd. I like it. So, Oras is nice and dandy, but let's face it, XY was the beginning of Gen 6 and all the Mega Evolutions and all that coolness. But anyway, I digress. We're going to run 1 Cobalion EX because there are lots of decks that depend on special energies. Plasma Flareon, Seismitoad, to name but a few. This guy can also, of course, hit fighting decks to take off their strong energies. You get the point. It's all about his righteous edge. Of course, Steel Bullet can get us out of some jams if we need to, like against Safeguarders and whatnot. So this guy is all around very useful. He's a good Pokemon to have around if the situation arises. We're also going to be using Aegislash EX. This is mostly for his Mighty Shield, but we can also power up his Slash Blast in this deck. However, most of what we're going to be doing is using this guy in much the same capacity we will as Cobalion, essentially, and punishing a lot of popular decks right now. Except instead of trying to peel their energies off, we're just going to sit and stare at them as they can't damage us at all, and we chip away at them with our Slash Blast. Last but not least, I wanted another early game Pokemon who could do a pretty good job, and that's Landorus EX. His Hammerhead will do a lot of what Xerneas EX's Breakthrough will do, just a little bit faster, of course, because it's only one energy. He can hit them for 30 and then, of course, set up other pokes on the bench for knockouts. And if your opponent runs some small Pokemon for evolution purposes and whatnot, of course, we might be able to score some cheap early game knockouts and disable our opponents, hitting things like Bronzong and whatnot. So, and of course, Lance Judgment is an interesting, albeit painful, way to score some late game knockouts if we need to. So that's our Pokemon lineup. We're running 15 Pokemon. We're running 14 supporters, 4 of which are Professor Juniper or, of course, Professor Sycamore. But I'm going to switch over at the absolute last second because I like Juniper, as you may already know. We're going to run 3 Ns just because taking early prizes is a thing, and we're planning to cycle our deck with Trump Card a little bit, so 3 Ns is fine. We don't want to get too many of them. We're going to be running a Colress because it's always a pretty good choice right now. It's a nice card to have around with Versus Seeker, and of course we plan to fill our bench fairly quickly and easily in this deck because we got a lot of basics, so he's just kind of an intuitive choice, really. We're also running 2 Skylos. We do have some interesting items, and if nothing else, you can use this to fish for supporters. It's not the best thing in the world, but basically we're going to play these early to go get things like Ultra Ball or Floatstone or whatever it is we happen to need, or our Ace Spec, which I'll get to in a moment. And then, late game it can be a nice Versus Seeker target in case you need something very specific. We're also running 2 copies of Pokemon Fan Club. Like I say, we kind of rely on our basics in this deck and getting specific ones, because pretty much everything is a one-of in this deck. So we're definitely going to want some Fan Club support here in order to power that up. Plus, it's a nice way to get Helioptile in the early game. We're running our kind of obligatory 1 Lysander, even though we do have the option to use Plasma Genesect. We're not really relying very heavily on that, so the 1 Lysander is, of course, still a very nice option to score some late-game KOs and whatnot. We also have 1 Lysander's Trump Card because we're going to want to cycle our energies back around as they get taken away from us, and we might want to get certain Pokemon back. So it's a very tactical play, that Trump Card. We're going to need it for very specific situations. Not necessarily calling back a lot of cards by number, but rather calling back very specific cards for our situations. So the Trump Card is a pretty crucial card in this match, or rather in this deck. Our Ace Spec is going to be Scramble Switch. This can be a great way to pick up KOs and quick power-ups, especially with Yveltal EX. But our energy, especially our Rainbow Energies, are kind of precious. So this can be a way to get somebody who's pretty heavily damaged the heck out of dodge, bring somebody else new in, and power them up. Because powering them up is going to be kind of the trick in this deck. So Scramble Switch is a pretty crucial card for us. We are running 2 Floatstones. That way we don't have to drop our Rainbow Energies onto Keldeo just to get free retreats, so we do have 2 Floatstones. We've opted for 3 Muscle Bands. This does block Flare Gear, but more importantly, this just helps us set up for KOs. This gets us a little extra damage, and in this match, in this deck, it really does matter. We got a number of Pokemon who hit for 30 damage, so that extra 20 here and there is going to really pay off in picking up KOs. We do have 2 Ultra Balls. This is largely for pulling Heliolisk, but of course after the first couple of turns, we usually won't need Heliolisk nearly as much. So we can in turn feed Heliolisk and Helioptiles in the mid to late game to the Ultra Ball to go get specific EXs that we may need more at the time. So it kind of works both ways. We also have 1 Professor's Letter. We run a number of basic energies, and this can be a good way to make sure we get our energy flow in the early game. And this is one of those important Skyla targets. We also have 1 Energy Retrieval. Once again, this is just to kind of keep the energy flowing. This can also be a nice tool to have in the event that your opponent is running some hammers and whatnot. Now, as far as stadiums go, we needed a stadium that could block our opponents from using their own stadiums, and at the same time, could also offer us some kind of benefit without helping our opponent too much. Fairy Garden seemed like a good choice, but in the Fairy matchup, it would be a very bad thing indeed to drop out. So instead, I opted for something a little more unusual, and something that didn't necessarily basically just do Darkrai's job a little bit less reliably, and that's Shadow Circle, which actually works in tandem with Darkrai, as Darkrai is a little more reliable than Fairy Garden for us anyway, as Darkrai is harder to get rid of than a Stadium card. But this just removes weakness on our Pokemon, which gives us a little more flexibility and usefulness, and yeah, our opponents for the most part don't need it and won't benefit from it because they probably won't have Dark Energies, and well, it's just mainly for getting rid of their stadiums, but occasionally might come in very handy for us, so it's the perfect choice for this slot. And last in our items, we are running 3 copies of Versus Seeker. just to get our, it's just very utilitarian at this point, and to make sure our trump card is something we have easy access to when we need it. Our energy lineup is actually a lot more interesting here than it is in most decks most of the time. And that is, we're running, of course, 4 rainbow energies. That's kind of a duh. That lets us run so many different colors all at the same time. So we have to run 4 rainbows. We're opting for 3 double colorless. It may seem like a lot, but a lot of our most common beat sticks, like Xerneas EX and Yveltal EX, for example, really would like this double colorless energy. And if your opponent chooses to ignore Helioptile, you can even drop one of these on him and let him start putting in some pretty significant damage, as his quick attack deals 60 or 90 damage depending on your coin flip. So you can think of it as an average of 75 if you want to think of things that way. So it's actually a pretty useful card for us. But we don't want to go 4 in because a lot of our Pokemon don't necessarily need quite that many. We are opting for 2 Plasma Energies. Obviously the only Pokemon this pretty much profits is Genesect EX, but in the right circumstances you can of course make Thundurus EX's Thunderous Noise attack pretty annoying for your opponent, as it can be a pretty powerful attack if you actually get it all the way powered up. The rest of our energies are basic. We have 1 Dark Energy, because Darkrai does have a double Dark energy cost. This makes Yveltal EX a little easier to use, and of course this plays with Darkrai for getting free retreats. So that's definitely going to be one of our energies. We have 2 Metal Energies, and that's mainly because of Aegis Slash. But Aegis Slash and Cobalion both like Metal Energies quite a bit, and they're definitely going to need to have them ready to go. And since we do have 2 Metal Pokemon who have a fairly high demand of their own energy type to a degree, we're going to opt for 2 instead of just 1 of their basic energy. We run 1 Lightning Energy, not really because of Heliolisk, but mainly because of Thundurus, as we're definitely going to want him to be able to go off when our energies start disappearing. So we're going to need a basic energy that can help us get energies back. Speaking of which, we do have 1 basic Grass Energy. This is for Genesect to help him get powered up. He has a double Grass cost, so this makes that a little easier, and it can help against Enhanced Hammers with Thundurus to power up Genesect. This is what I mean planning a few turns in advance in this deck. And last but not least, we have 1 Fairy Energy. This is the last energy in our deck, and obviously this is just for Xerneas EX. But this makes his X-Blast a little bit easier, a little bit better. And this is definitely one of those energies you can attach to Yveltal EX, and then Y-Cyclone back onto your bench at a crucial time to kind of switch things in and do tricks and whatnot. So, anyway, that is the Heliolisk Rainbow Circus deck. It is not necessarily a super competitive deck. It's more of a casual deck, but it's a lot of fun. Take it to your local. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's just a lot of fun. It may not always work, but when it does, it wins in ways that most decks only ever dream about. So anyway, until next time, like, comment, subscribe, check me out on Twitter, and follow my channel for more interesting Pokemon content.